beggars belief that the very office, and it tends to be a man, doesn't it? The very man to whom we wish to restrain, or the man we wish to restrain, is the one who decides with his mates when we have a conversation about how, if, where we restrain him. He chooses who sits on that committee or commission, what their mandate is, how much money they have, who they speak to, when they speak to it. They come back with a report. He chooses again how much of it is available to you. It's called a white paper. I call it a whitewash. This matter is dispatched to Parliament, and the Speaker of the House, in his infinite wisdom, when Parliament is out of session, proceeds at once to the Council of State. The Council of State returns it as it should, and he returns it back. I'm done. I have nothing further to discuss. Yes, you do. Oh, yes, you do. So there's a case in court. It may or may not go any which way, but we're not done here. We're not done here at all. We have had 20 years in my entire lifetime, which hasn't been that long. This is the longest constitution we have had. It is a constitution that has served us badly, extremely well, and the different types of characters and the different types of political institutions or political parties. This is the same time to sit and to think quietly. So my challenge to you is this, and we must not allow Parliament to pass under any certificate of emergency. There is no emergency. Any further amendments to this constitution until we have a conversation. And for me, the conversation starts and ends here. The conversation is about the amendment to amend the constitution. As long as the executive is the one who runs the show, we have no conversation. The conversation we should have now, today, before the 2016 election, is about how to amend the constitution. So let us not wake up tomorrow and be told that there was a quorum in Parliament of 6 or 7 or whatsoever, and they have amended some non-entrenched clauses. The moment you start on that path, you begin the conversation to the entrenched clauses. Let's not move another inch. Stop now. This is our opportunity to tell the leadership of Parliament, when they have removed themselves from their made in China chairs, get a bloody move on. Stop this now. Once you begin to have a conversation about non-entrenched clauses, the rest is obvious. So my challenge to all of you today in the closing of my opening remarks is that we keep an eye on Parliament, and we're very, very clear that under no circumstance should any member of Parliament lend his or herself, and there are a bunch of hers there too, thank God, lend his or herself to passing anything that looks like an amendment to a non-entrenched, let alone a conversation about the entrenched. Let's take this conversation and start again.
And I think constitution amendment is very important, and it is important at this stage in our history. And why do I say that? It is the first time in our history since 48 that we've had a constitution open up for comprehensive review. And I do like the point Pepe was making, that Kenyans were more excited about their constitution. In fact, they've been excited about the amendment of their constitution since about 2000. Not previously. The Kenyans didn't react to constitutional amendment demands the way they did from 2000. But it took electoral violence in 2007. That's why in amending their constitution thereafter, citizens got involved because they don't like and they didn't like what happened, and the risk to everything else that they value. In 2010, given where we had come from 2008, post-2008, we were all concerned about the state of the country, the threat of violence, the trauma, all the things we were talking about. Actually, the consultation mobilized. We were talking about the Constitution in 2010 a lot, up to 2011. So there was excitement. But then the process dragged on, and then we got lost somewhere. And I think it happened fundamentally because people expected CRC recommendations to be put to the public. Recently, we went around the 10 regions on our campaign for multi-party governance reform, which involves amending specific clauses in the constitution. Many people said, but they talked to us, and we got this especially in the north and in Brahafo areas. They talked to us, but they never came back to tell us whether they heard us right or whether what they are proposing is acceptable to us. Increasingly, our elections are becoming very, very threatening to everything. Okay, and we do not even know how we are going to manage 2016. Now, when you look at where the problem is also around presidency, because it's only the president who is directly elected by everyone. I mean, the intensity of whatever militant songs we have and so on, it's not over constituencies, they are local. It's about the president. So we care a lot about the presidency and what is happening there. So there is a clear sign that you've had 208, 2012, likely in 2016. You don't sit and say, oh, we can do this, because it's been very difficult to steer ourselves away from the explosion. It took 8 months in court for this to be managed. When we went to the regions, the constant refrain we got in every region from ordinary people, they said, but this system is not working for us. It's simple, as if they memorized it or something, and that's how they say it. The people, this system, this whole governance system is not working for us. Yes, and if it's not working for them and they are not seeing solutions, why would they be committed to defend it when it's under attack?
In law, constitutional law particularly, is one of those esoteric things that get difficult to appreciate. And I think part of the conversation has been above the heads of many people. But there's a point which is where your issue comes in. And I like what Nanaya and really everybody has said here. This is it. This matter may sound lofty and esoteric, but if we get it wrong, this country will burn. And that's the point you were trying to make. So there are a number of issues. It falls to some of us to beat them the way we are beating them now. And the room is sparse. We've had times when people were standing outside. Not this time, because of the nature of the conversation. But it should not be lost on us, okay, that if we get these things wrong, we are going to have a Burkina Faso. And the latent anger in Ghana today is such that we won't be able to tell where that will end. So that fact should be clear. Now, what we need to do, and I was trying to impress that on Dr. Akwete, is to make that fact clear to our politicians. Because there is a lack of trust in that establishment. I don't think anybody necessarily trusts that they are going to do things for our good. I ask this question. How are we going to get people to properly? I suspect that when the Constitutional Review Commission was commission was going around, the mindset of those who responded was very tunnel vision oriented. I suspect it based on my experiences. They probably couldn't comprehend the totality of what a constitution is. And so they'll give you specifics. For example, we want to vote for our DCE. I'm sure if it was within a different political environment, you'd get a different reaction from each community because they are politically injected with some, we have fundamental problems. So we need to let the people understand what this constitutional review thing means. So we should take our time.
Sir, don't you think the white paper that the government issued is as a result of the politics we do in this country? Reason being, one, imagine a party A in government, and then elections are to be run at the local level. Then you have Party B, a region which could be a Party B World Bank in quote. And then you think that probably you would have about 90% of the mayors being from party, whilst Party A is in power. What happens? Because
I think that's what some of us are looking for, because that is good. Those who cry against winner takes all, that is the cure. The winner doesn't take all. That's what we've been saying. The politicians themselves. Have you heard any political party that are spoken against election of DCEs. They have promised election of DCEs during campaigns. You haven't heard them? They have. So what is their problem? Now you say you want it, we give it to you. You say we don't want it again. That's the insult.
It looks as if the president appoints almost everybody to every position in this country. Talk of the Supreme Court, the Appeals Court, Security Corps, all national institutions, and even board of directors and board members. It then means that everybody is at the beck and call of the president, such that if you take a matter to the Supreme Court, you have very little chance of succeeding in our system of listen. So what can we do as people, civil society organizations, identifiable organizations, to make sure that some of these powers are taken? Because it was one of the issues raised that certain appointing powers must be taken from the president, such that people with confidence can work. Because there's in this country, when a new government comes to power, all manner of people are made to go home. They are thrown away from their jobs. It doesn't matter the training, their capability and things like that.
The whole problem I see is that why can't we, there's a problem with the constitution. We practice it over 20 years, it's not helping us. Why can't we start it afresh? Start the whole process, then choose and pick sort of amendments. I don't think it will help us.
As much as we debate the contents of our constitution and seek amendments, I think what is even more important is that civil society really engages the populace. Because at the end of the day, the real danger and also the privilege of democracy is whether you are illiterate or educated, you have one thumb. And so when you have just a few people enlightened and they know what's best, but the masses don't, the country is going to go in the way of the masses, and we are all going to be frustrated. So I would want us to also be very conscious of this and find ways of breaking the law down, breaking the constitution down, so my grandmother can understand it. A lot of what we are saying, quite a lot of people in this room don't know what is a white paper, pink paper, blue paper, yellow paper, green. It doesn't mean anything to them. It doesn't mean anything to their livelihoods. And they have the same thumb as the educated person. Thank you.
I think it's important that we not let, while I'm a big fan of constitutional amendment and constitutional review, let's not also get into this bind where we let the political class tell us that, if we don't change the constitution, we can't do anything about this. There are some things that we can do in this country without changing the constitution. Before we had the constitution, presidents were still choosing CEOs of Ghana Water and ECT and those places, where they were not based on the constitutional power. Most of these things are in statutes. There is enabling legislation for most of these government agencies, where the government, the statute, the act of parliament or the decree or whatever it is, says who should appoint. Some of these things, by changing statute, we can change a number of these appointment procedures. So it's important for us to know what it is that we can do without necessarily changing the constitution. While we're still working on constitutional amendment, there are still more basic things, including what my brother Figure mentioned about the quality of just the electorate on the ground level. We need to worry about these things. Sometimes when we are cutting, we have to cut our cloth according to our size. When we are writing constitutions, for example, I have argued, not in Ghana, but in other forums, that, for example, we tend to have this thing about the Bill of Rights in the constitution. It's important. But maybe in Africa, or in a context where you have mass illiteracy, and where people are unlikely to demand their rights by going to court, maybe you need a constitution that doesn't count too much on the people going to court. So some things that you think are vital, are necessary, and absolutely must have, you impose them as a duty on the government. If you think schools are what we need in every district, if you think a secondary school is important for every district, a hospital is important, why can't we impose that as an obligation, a constitutional obligation of the government? So we should think creatively when it comes to some of the things that really matter. We shouldn't just have some simple one-size-fits-all constitution we like it somewhere, we just cut and paste. We should look at our society. Is this a place where it's good enough just to give people rights who are illiterate and just say you have rights? Maybe not. Maybe we should do something creative about that. So I take your charge on, but I think it's not just mobilizing people on the ground. It should also inform the way in which we think about constitutions and how to make them really answer the challenges and the difficulties that